welcome to the exhibition talk of hosting bodies. We're here at Sanatorium, and I would like to start with thanking to the Sanatorium team for hosting the exhibition and hosting us today. Melih, Doğa, Ekin, Zeynep, and Adnan. So I'd like to start talking about the main concept of the show a little bit, and then it will turn into a conversation with the artists here, Semâ Bekirović, Gülşah Mursaloğlu, and Kerem Ozan Bayraktar. So we came together actually through Kerem a little bit in the beginning, and so the show, how it happened was a little bit different than maybe the more conventional ways of happening. Because Kerem, Semâ, and Gülşah were already grouped together, and then they invited me to join them. And so it was a super exciting and nice process of researching and reading together and talking about what we can do for the show. And all the works, except for one piece of Semâ, are all produced for the exhibition. And so we were sort of having discussions about what they were going to produce and then how we would be bringing together everything and conceptualizing our show. And so the hosting bodies concept, sort of, we were looking at the relationship between a body and its environment, how a body affects its environment, and the environment is always affected by bodies. And so in each of the works, there's this relationship between the body and its environment that is quite open. And another central concept of the show is heat. It's a common actor in all of the works, so we will be talking about the role of heat in the works as well. So I would like to start with Semâ's video, which is behind us. It also has a sound, but it's off right now, so maybe after the talk you will have a chance to experience it with sound as well. So Semâ is exhibiting a video documentation of this installation. And so maybe you can talk about the experience of installing this huge sugar bowl in the nature, and then talk about how it turned out to be a video of it.
Yeah, so I was asked to make a work for it's a biennial in the east of the Netherlands called Into Nature. And the topic of that show was energy, so I took this kind of literal, I thought like energy of the body, sugar, and I had this idea to make like a kind of a planet out of sugar, kind of symbolic for maybe decadence, or and that it would kind of slowly get destroyed by the sun and by the rain and by the animals that were eating from it. It was actually a very simple idea, but actually making the damn thing was like hell. But it's often with things that are very simple in your head. I think like many of you are artists, so probably having the same kind of experience. It's like, natural laws are like often really against like simple ideas. So I wanted to make it even bigger, this bowl. So it's like solid candy made like layer by layer of like melting big buckets of sugar with some food coloring and pouring it in this giant mold. And I wanted to make it even bigger, but I didn't realize this is like 1.40 meters, and it was already 2,300 kilos. So anything bigger than that for sure would collapse under its own weight, and it was also, it was just practically undoable. This kind of things like I just found out during the process. And there were like a lot of technicians involved, but also ecologists and beekeepers. So all the ingredients of the ball have been checked by many institutions to make sure, also because it was in like a protected nature area, so we had to be really sure that this was not harmful for the local ecology there. It was a big adventure to make these objects, and it had many stages. So first, like having the idea, and then thinking of how to do it, and then actually the process of making it with all these people involved. And then it was there, but then actually the work started because like during the exhibition, a lot of things happened, like it changed. And at a certain point, like at first there were not even that many insects, but after it started in July, and then I think in the end of August, like most flowers, they had bloomed, so there was not so much to eat anymore. And then like the insects, they discovered this bowl, and like suddenly I was completely shocked by the amount of insects. It was just like, oh, is this still okay? So I again talked to the beekeeper, the friend, and like he said, like, no, it's normal behavior, because most of these bees they die end of the summer, and the bees they at the end of the summer start making winter bees. Like the summer bee lives 3 weeks, and then the winter bee lives like the whole winter. So there's this changing period, like in September, October, where you have like many bees that are at the end of their lifespan, and then like there's not so much to eat, and they just come and they start like having this like almost like Last Supper kind of feasting frenzy. I was happy to hear that was not a biohazard, but I was shocked a bit. And then we were talking like what to do with the exhibition, and there were so many themes also to doing with organs and like how processes interact to each other, and like all the processes of like eating, metabolism, change, etc. So then I think Kerem actually suggested to do something with this project, because it was only seen as the object like during the show, and I thought it was actually a nice idea to make a video out of it and be able to show it also in another way. And during the whole process there were so many people making videos that had sent them to me, and in the end all the material is made by volunteers that was working for the festival, that just had sent me files all the time. So it's also kind of a collaboration with people there.
I think it gives us a great experience, because like when you visit the ball in person, you only see it once, and that's like however that is at that stage. But right now we have the chance to see the whole process actually in a couple of minutes.
I mean, when you just see it, you only see like a snapshot of it, and now you feel like actually like the whole life of the ball is there. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's an advantage video.
So, Gülşah, maybe we can continue with your work a little bit. Gülşah created this very elaborate system here in the gallery, and as well as in the window, actually. So, can you talk about the parts of this system and how they come together?
Sure, of course. So this is actually an ongoing investigation that I've been working with potatoes and their perpetual transformation into bioplastics since 2019. So 2 years to be exact, but I think because of the whole pandemic experience, 2019 feels a lifetime away for many reasons. So in 2019, I was part of this kind of research group on potatoes, which was part of the public program of the 2019 Istanbul Biennial, which was titled The Seventh Continent. And this was actually a very great experience that really influenced me and that triggered this project, that made me like move on to this project. And it was like a workshop, like a two-step workshop. And the first part included kind of artists, academics, activists, who could maybe relate to the issues of like food and agriculture, but like we just met and then everyone introduced themselves, everyone talked about their own practices, and then how they relate to this simple tuber, the potato. And of course, everyone has many associations with the potato. But then, as an artist, my work always deals with material transformation and different temporalities of materials. So there's this actually amazing TED talk called How to Make a Toaster from Scratch by this designer called Thomas Waits. And in there, it's unrelated, but in there he tries to make a toaster from scratch. And while trying to make a cover for his toaster, he tries to make the plastic cover with potatoes. So from that video, I knew this was possible, and I wanted to research that. And in the second step of the program, you would either collaborate with someone in the group or just work independently and then do a presentation. I ended up like having lots of talks with this farmer in the group who was farming a lot of potatoes in Maksudiye. And so I started researching and trying it out, but it wasn't as simple of a process as it seemed like, because there are like lots of like do-it-yourself videos on YouTube and kind of like a Semâ experience with her bowl. Like when you try to make something innovative with the materials, a lot of different people get involved. And so I kept trying, I had many failures, and in the end, this year when I moved to Berlin, I met this biotechnology student who was like a freshman, super young, but he was as enthusiastic as I was to make this happen. And then after many tries, we managed to make it happen. So the star of the installation is the potato bioplastic, but why I was specifically interested in this material transformation was the shift in the potato's temporality in this transformation. I'm always interested in non-human temporalities, like this could be either geological temporalities we can't relate to, or like very minuscule temporalities, those that are way shorter than us. So I was interested in how we wanted now the potato to be like, to have a very short temporality. We want to use it like as one-use plastic, and we expect it to perish and go back into the soil it arose from. So in the installation, so these are the second and third iterations of the series, and it's titled Merging Fields, Splitting Ends. So the second version is in the window display, and this is the third version. And here it comes together with different actors of the underground. This is how I define them. So different materials we extract from the earth and transform. So things that we don't necessarily see as it just came out of the mines. So we have copper vessels and clay vessels. And as we all know, copper is a great conductor of heat. And they each have like these, I think they're called mug heaters. So they're like personal heating devices that are often used by busy people in the offices to keep their beverages hot. So each one of them has like boiling water in them, and these small heaters are trying to preserve the heat. And over the course of the exhibition, what I'm expecting is with the heat, the bioplastic will slowly start to disintegrate. I've done this before, so I know usually how it goes, and these long chains start to break at different places. But in this one, I wanted to have a variation in the heat. So the clay ones have a different conduction of heat, less than copper ones. And the one in the window display is kind of like a closed circuit. The heat is constantly within this very limited amount of space, so it's creating a lot of steam and kind of like covering even our vinyl, which I was defining to them this morning, maybe it's hacking your own exhibition, like covering your own title in your own names. So I think this transformation in the window display will be more striking, whereas this one will be more minuscule. But in general, I'm interested in kind of making the agency of the artwork visible through like portraying this kind of transformation that changes over the course of the exhibition. Because I never think of artworks as these like stable things that stay the same over the course of decades or centuries. So I'm always interested in underscoring that agency through these systems.
Great summary. Gülşah. And Kerem, maybe we can continue with yours because you're actually like similar to Gülşah, experimenting with materials a lot, and this time you're actually experimenting with the 3D printing technology, and which also uses filaments, which are made of starch as well. So there's that material similarity with Gülşah's work as well. So can you talk about vital heat and how you experimented with 3D printing and how you decided to keep some glitches in your work?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, as Gülşah, I am very interested with material transformation of things. It's, I think, the main problematics of me is the objecthood. Like why there are objects. I mean, why there's a difference so that things are set apart and they became objects. And I try to answer this question just playing with materials. And 2 years ago we had an exhibition here, and I had an installation just over there with small ambulance like creature-like ambulances maybe. And this time I made these heart-like shapes. And so it seems like I am kind of into like the question of health and life and survival. And the objects that we think is making the life. So heart is an organ that, you know, pumps the blood all the time. And it's like compared to other ones, it's extremely active and we feel it, but we don't have any control on it. I really like this feeling that, so I think maybe I cannot count this organ as mine because I cannot control it. It's over there and it's working all the time, like all the others. But I think heart is special for me because I am very interested with thermodynamics and cybernetics. Like it's kind of like a machine. So when we were talking about the heat in the exhibition talks, I thought about using the heat. So these filaments are melt into these shapes. I think it was 220 degrees. I really like that you can use heat as an actor to form things, transform things into other things. But every material has also some capacity to receive heat. Until one point they became cold. That's also like a kind of phase break, or it's like an emergent, like the water became ice. And then also in that prints, I use UV print. It's also like a heat-based image making process. And what else? Yeah. Then when I started to make them, I made this like kase bowls, and then I made bowls look like hearts, or hearts becoming bowls. It's all about the things that Ulya said. Actually, it's like how body reacts with the environment. I take this also as a metaphor. Like even when we are eating on the table, a plate is a selection of things. It creates a border. You take things out of it and create a composition, and you consume it, and you throw the others. So I was thinking of these things. Then I made some twin hearts, and some broken hearts, and some glitchy hearts. It's because I like to show all the I don't want to use this word process, it's became very cliche, I know, but yeah, it's all the process in the end. Rather than like finalizing an artwork and deciding this is the object. So object is the oldest process, and there is no fixed phase of an object. I mean, there are many behaviors of the same object, I think. Then I use this pink color to indicate a kind of infection, or like you can also read as a metaphor of genetical transformation of true islands. You know, if I have a virus right now, it's gonna be like that. Then it's gonna be other islands.
Unfortunately, it's too accurate right now.
And there are also blueprints of hearts, like very two-dimensional hearts in the ground. I was reading this embryogenesis, like how the heart became into this shape. Because when you are a baby, there are just these two veins. They come together and they grow up and create hearts. And my interest was if it's written in the DNA or if it comes afterwards. I learned that it's an algorithm. Depending on the environment, it tells you what to do rather than a priori situation. So the shape of the heart is not written in the DNA code. The code tells you what will happen next in certain conditions. So yeah, then I was.
It's like an if-then situation. If that happens.
It's more generative situation. Yeah, it's not a fixed thing. Anyway, then what else you ask?
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, there are some things that they just said, and I agree with them. Like thinking the heat as an actor.
Yeah, maybe we can go to heat in the next round as well. And maybe we can continue with Semâ's other work actually. Maybe if you want to talk about that a little bit. Semâ placed another work which is right behind you actually. It's called Untitled Honeycomb, and so because your practice involves a lot of collaborating with nature and initiating a process and letting nature do the rest type of approach. So maybe you can also talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I did a lot of different collaborations with non-humans. I also it's another project where I'm a curator of non-human artists. It's another project if you're interested in. There's a book over there that explains this concept more clearly. But before I started doing this kind of having this curatorial practice, I did a lot of like collaborations with non-humans and, for example, like building, going to water birds and feeding them my personal belongings, like photo negatives and my toothbrush, and just like staying there as long that at a certain point they were taking these objects and they built their nest from my personal belongings. And I'm very interested in like value systems, like how things that we value are being valued by other species, for example, or in this case with building the nest, like things I valued certain things, and the birds also valued the same things, but for like different reasons. But still, there were maybe like other like deeper reasons that were similar. So yeah, I find it just interesting to just think other entities and like to think of like their perspective also on us. That we don't only interpret nature, but nature like other animals, they also interpret us in certain ways. And and the one with the bees was a quite old work where I just bought from some things at IKEA, and I always find it kind of fascinating, these mass-produced shapes that also somehow refer to minimal art in a way. And I saw a kind of relationship with like the bee honeycomb that is also so mass-produced and has this very nice minimal aesthetic. So I thought there could be like a communication possibility to like for something to happen, a certain communication. So I was very interested how the bees would react to something from IKEA, and they were reacting rather positively. So we put it in the beehive together with a beekeeper, and I mean he did it. I kept a safe distance, and then we just looked after a while to see like what the bees had made from all these IKEA products, and this is one artwork they made. Yeah.
Thanks. So this also, like this work also shows the process on it as well. It makes the process apparent in a way, which is also something common in all these works as well. So I'd like to go to Gülşah with this idea of transformation. You already covered a little bit, but maybe you can talk about now the role of heat and how this transformation is an ongoing part of your project.
Sure. I think like back when I was an art student, this was something I thought I had to fight against, because they were like, but your work is changing. And then I realized, okay, this is part of my work. Okay, I have to own it up. And for a while, like in the first projects I was doing, like there were elements that need to be taken care of. Like I had to go back to the gallery, like fill the waters, and this is still the case. And then in some projects where I was not physically present, there would be this other person taking care of the piece. And to me, this was also a way of like establishing intimacy with the physical object, kind of going back to it, taking care of it, as if you're taking care of a plant or taking care of an animal. And I really like this aspect, kind of like the artwork being something evolving, something changing, and then like kind of you being this caretaker, and then going back, kind of like the beekeeper going back to the beehive. And there have been many materials I worked with, like I think one of my very first projects after school was this huge columns with toothpaste, which ended up like making everything in our house smell like toothpaste. Kind of like what we were talking about, how your car became full of sugar. But like in that instance, like I guess what I'm interested in while working with this very mundane materials is that like you put this thing on your teeth every night and every morning, but you have very little idea about what is in it. And then with this kind of investigation, you see the lifespan of it, you see its properties, how the materials can behave. So every time I'm working with the material, there's like an ongoing process of trial and error. I guess not even error, just trying to understand how the material behaves, how it reacts to my actions, to the environment, and what are the limits of it. And I guess with the concept of the hosting body, it's kind of an obvious place to go after the pandemic experience, because with the virus, you're the host. And we've been dealing with it like for the past 2 years. But the first question that came to me during this experience was like, what are the limits of the body? Like, what are the things it can host? What are the things it cannot host? And like, this brought me to consumption. So like currently on another project, I'm kind of dealing with like the nature of consumption and how we as humans kind of portray it as like, oh, you are what you eat, you can choose what you eat. But there are all these actually things, bits, kind of like microplastics or other like pharmaceutical residue that find their way into our systems. Anyway, going back to heat. And while experimenting with all these materials and seeing how they react to many things, also to daylight and to heat, time is an ongoing question for me. It's a huge question. I'm not capable of providing answers, but I'm just doing these humble attempts to understand certain features through these collaborations with the materials. Carlo Rovelli, someone we've been talking about with Kerem, has been a nice guide in this attempt to understand time. And he's a physicist, but he writes in a way that is accessible to all. So I guess you could define his books as popular physics, but he has this one particular one that I keep going back to, which kind of encouraged me to work with heat, and that one is called The Order of Time. And in there, he has many ideas, he says many things that are very striking to me about our understanding of basic time, but he says something about heat, and he says time and heat behave very similarly. They're both unidirectional. Unless an external force is exerted, heat always moves from hot to cold, and then in order to understand time, we need to understand heat. So this kind of encouraged me to do something with heat, where the heat would be the main actor of an installation, and then it got introduced into this project with the potatoes. And in the initial presentation, there were these heating plates, which are also present in the window display, which were boiling water, kind of connecting two things at once, and then which brought me to many ways we create heat, on a regular basis. And I guess another reason why I was interested in it is that these very, very minor temperature changes can destroy planets. How we're always talking about 1.5 degrees, being the limit of climate change, or how your body temperature changing from 36 to 39 can destroy whole systems in the body. I guess this is it.
Yeah, it's a really tough concept to actually really understand how 1 degree and a half can matter. So I think these experiments are helping us understand that in bigger and see the bigger picture in a better way, I feel like. Going back to Kerem, I actually just wanted to ask you one more, a slightly deeper question on how you see heart's relationship with the body, because I think you didn't talk much about that part. And you said you were interested in the heart because of some political and personal reasons, but maybe you can explain a little bit more what those reasons are.
Well, yeah, it's biopolitics. I don't know. I think when something moves, it creates heat. So it means there might be a life there, like the bees in Seda's video. They're also creating, crazy amount of heat. If we think in this way, we can think the planet itself is a living assemblage. And another thing, when we see something that we are thinking that it's shaped by the heat, it means that there was a life once there. So these hearts are dead hearts. They are cold, but we can see that they're shaped by the heat. So probably there was someone using this heat. So we can see them indicators of past life. I think this is enough political connection. Apart from that, the heart itself is an organ. Aristotle talks about the heart in one of his books. He says that all the vital heat is created by heart. Also, when we fall in love, we create heat, and this is both so heart is a kind of organ that connects these metaphors and biological realities, because when we are in love, we have a heartbeat in which we are creating heat thermodynamically, but also culturally we are engaged into a kind of relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. Great emotional ending to. So yeah, these were my questions actually. If you want to cover something else, please feel free. And,
I would like to actually add something for all of our works, that we already said that they are all process-based, but they have also some formal similarities. Like Gülşah and my work is kind of works with the electricity. I used electricity to create with these objects, and it's also heat and energy. And in Gülşah's work, you can see that. And Semâ using external forces, bees, to create its shape. And also that the way that we install things, I think is quite emergent and random. This is very important for me. That's why I say. And they are changing on time.
we were even dreaming about whether like Gülşah's heat would do something to Kerem's objects and
Melt the honeycomb.
yeah.
But I think these ones are very subtle. Maybe if we were to put the honeycomb in the window display, things would happen.
I would just like to add that we came together through Kerem. Like we met in Germany, and we had also a lot of talks about physics, biology, materialism, philosophy, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, it was very nice to then meet Gülşah and Ulya and to kind of feel like we have been all of us working around the same themes, and then like met each other and continued this conversation, which I think was as important as doing this show. So it was a really nice way to work.
Yeah, the process of the exhibition was also
work.
Yeah, also like if we try to answer the question of Gülşah, what is a body and what are the limitations, where it ends, where it finishes, I think in the end we cannot define it. Yeah, like this work or this work. So it's a constantly changing entity. What do you think?
I agree. I have a question to Ulya actually. So the exhibition text, I don't know if any of you had the chance to read, even though like we're talking about bodies, like we don't see like the human body, we see parts of the human body. Like how do you kind of like conceptualize all these bodies you're covering in your text in relation to the works? Kind of maybe just a few things about how you wrote the text.
So with that text, actually, I wanted to make our research and thinking process visible. That was my main goal. That's why I went back to our conversations and I tried to pick some references and some themes that we talked about. Because we covered quite different areas, and in the end it became something else. But I really wanted to make those different areas visible, and I felt like the only way to write about those different fields, to use this more experimental approach, and although some paragraphs can feel quite irrelevant and maybe like not following directly each other, but in the end they all connect with a concept of the body, whether it's an error body, like the lack of something in the body, or the hosting body was also one of the things that we talked about. So that's why I actually used that method, and I felt comfortable writing like that. And so in the end, it's maybe not directly about the exhibition, but more about the process of how the exhibition came together. So maybe if you have any questions, we can take them.
I know. About Kerem's work. Where the infection is another color but the same material. Can we talk about an idea where the infection, which is actually a phenomenon, we can say, becomes a body in itself because it affects the body, and then maybe it becomes a hosting body in itself later. Like, is the material the same actually? Because
Is the material is
it's
pink?
the same material, right?
Yeah, but with pink color.
It's the same solid. Solid
Same
material.
solid, but I don't paint it. Itself is painted already by the heat.
So it is as much of a body as the hosting body.
Yeah, I haven't thought in that way, but yes, we can.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is here is a kind of variation, because when we talk about the change, we need a variation. Like things became different through little variations. In the end, they became a kind of new species and create their own isolation, their own island. And I like this a lot and play this usually with patterns, colors, textures of the same thing in different variation. So the question is, after which point we started to ask that they are different. And recently I started to read this variation as an infection, not in a negative sense, as a natural thing, but also it's right now, it's currently happening very realistically with this COVID virus. I like how it moves actually, even though it kills us. It's a good philosophical experiment. I don't know if I answered your
Yes.
question. Thank you.
Thank you for the discussion. It's so nice. So I'd like to ask you something that you have told just before. So I was thinking about your taking part or taking place in this gallery. Like you were talking about how your work communicated with other ones and the other ones. And how was the process, like how was the discussion that I'm going to take this place here because of that, and I'm going to take place here because of that? Because I feel like all of your works, they makes a part in a whole. I feel that all your works are communicating energy. And is there any discussion between you that you are made when you are composing this gallery?
How we use the exhibition floor, and how we
That's
place the works.
I think he's asking the installation, right?
Yes.
Question for
Yeah, we discussed together, and because all these installations are site-specific, actually, it was not possible to plan ahead. So we talked about it, but it actually happened more organically while installing the show. And actually, yeah,
I
we
always
want.
mentioned my work there.
confessions.
In our discussions, we wanted them to be in dialogue, but also to have sort of their own breathing room, some space as well. So not to be super symmetrical or neat, but to have that kind of a little bit of a randomness to them as well. and also to have Semâ's work, the video, visible and like not having any walls, extra walls in the gallery, so that not to block any works from being in contact with each other. So the main idea was everything to be visible at once, but also to have a room of their own. Okay. Anything you guys want to add? Or
I mean, me personally, I always have this Zen garden technique where you start with the big rock, then you start putting other ones. Here, I think all of us are working in such way. Like I watch Gülşah how she's choosing the things. So it's kind of like a relative way of installing things. You are just putting something and thinking about it and discussing. Like this works was covering very big area in the beginning. Then we felt that it's very symmetrical, and this symmetry, idea of symmetry, doesn't really work with our concept that we work. So Ulya told me just get into a small area.
And I guess for me, like the existence of a window display was exciting as a place that could make all the seats we're talking about very visible from the outside. So, like that was something I wanted to do in the window display, and I offered it to Ulya. She kindly accepted. Yeah, and I really enjoy seeing how it's evolving over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, if no other questions, I guess that's it. Thank you everyone for coming, and thanks again Sanatorium and all the team for hosting the exhibition and us and the talk today.